Last March, Douglas Byng celebrated his 90th birthday. Well, now another chance to hear our tribute to this great entertainer, in which he talks to Glyn Dearman about his life and career. Douglas Byng at 90.
Good evening. Well, just to introduce myself and some of the songs that I wrote and sang in Cabaret, I'm Douglas Byng. I entertained at supper the smarter members of the class called upper, those idle rich who never went to bed and clamoured for amusement while they fed, where debutantes acquired the champagne habits in evening wraps of ermine or white rabbit, and actresses with tempers and with sables raised hell because they hadn't sent a table. My songs were said to be a trifle risky, but made the nicest just so frisky. Sedate, black-jetted bosoms heaved with laughter. Oh, what has he said now? Their daughters pointed jokes out to them after. And though the tone of Mendelssohn's own spring song may perhaps be more artistic than a Byng song, I still maintain I've nothing to feel shy about. I told the young those things that parents lie about.
Douglas Byng, first of all, congratulations on being 90.
Well, I'm really surprised to find myself here at all at my age. Years ago, when Alec Guinness gave a party when he was knighted, I was greeted by Sir Alan Herbert, who said, "Hello, I thought we were both dead."
In your 69 years as an actor, as a review artist, as a musical comedy artist, as a pantomime dame, one of our greatest pantomime dames, you've been considered risque.
Oh, very, yes. One of the notices when I was in a review, I think it was Hide It or Diddle, I think James Aiken in his notice said Mr. Byng is not near the knuckle, he is the knuckle itself.
And in fact, I believe, have been banned by the BBC.
Well, one or two of the numbers were banned, yes, like I'm a Tree was banned. But that was banned because God knows why I'm a tree, it isn't like the gourd.
To think that I should ever be just nothing better than a tree, stuck here in lonely solitude, so old and shivering in the nude, without a leaf to form a burden cloak. It's not a joke to be a blasted oak. I'm a tree, a little bird it used to nest in. I'm a tree, pretty children used to rest in it with me. All the pixies did adore so, now perspiring hikers clean their bikes against me torso. I'm a tree, all the woodpeckers meet friends in, a tree that all the squirrels spend weekends in, a tree done in by lightning and hailstones hard as agates, a tree with fallen branches, all my children now are faggots. You must admit it's lousy to be full of wind and maggots. God knows why I'm a tree.
I wasn't really vulgar, but because it was refined vulgarity. I mean, I never said anything vulgar, I just said ordinary words. People had a double meaning to it, and if they liked to find another meaning, it was their fault, not mine. There was the old Princess Alice of Athlone, the charity ball. She sent me a little message before, said, "Dear Mr. Byng, much as I like it, not your worst tonight." Which I always liked very much.
Let's go back, if we may, to the beginning.
The very early days.
The very early days, yes. You were born on St. Patrick's Day, just outside Nottingham on the 17th of March, 1893.
That's right. You see, I was the second crop. My father had 10 children by the first wife and then married my mother. She was 40 and he was 50. As a matter of fact, when I was born, it was during lunchtime apparently, because one of my half-brothers, who now is over 100 in Nottingham, he was so delicate that he had to be christened when he was born. He's only got to 103. But when I was born, apparently Lewis was at lunch, I think it was on a Sunday, and the doctor came down and said, "Shall I save the mother or the baby?" Well, I don't know what my father said, but anyway, he managed to save both. And the first I can remember as a performer was standing on a little round hassock, and I think I did a recitation of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. I was about 2, I should think, or 3. My mother used to make me do these things. My elder sister said it was far too late and far too often. And then I did an imitation of it as a lady would do it. So that must have been the beginning of the Dame.
At the age of 2?
Well, it must have been 2 or 3 years.
Were you always stage struck?
Oh, well, so much so that when I was standing, I can remember it, standing with my head not reaching the keyboard of the piano until I want to go on the stage, and that's when my mother said, I hope, dear, you will never come to that.
How old were you when the family moved to London?
14. The first job I had, I was assistant draftsman at A-List's, the famous theatrical costumier. We lived between Lee and Blackheath, and I had to get to Soho Square by 9 in the morning until 8 at night, and 4 on Saturdays, for £1 a week.
And this was when?
That was when I was 17 or 18, would be about 1911, wouldn't it?
At 21, you started your professional stage career. How did that come about?
I answered an advertisement in the stage. For 25 weeks concert party, like comedian wanted. I walked up and down Charing Cross Road about 10 times before I had the nerve to go up the stairs. When there was a very tall man with a piano, and I'd taken my little hat and collar to do the cure, the simple country cure, which I used to do at home. He said, yes, well, can you come down to Hastings this afternoon? I'm shattered. I rushed home, and I said I was going down to Hastings to a job at a concert party. My father said, oh, well, yes, it'll be a holiday for you, and my mother didn't say anything.
What was the show?
And it was called The Periodicals. We had magazines in silk on each side of our lounge suit, and I was Mr. Forget-Me-Not. The seats were 3 6 and a shilling, and the Fisher boys used to come in, 3 of them. They came in and sat in the front row every night for a year, and then they went out with the fishing boats and came in at about 6 in the morning, and I lived in a little shingled house in the fishing village with 3 steps, and in the morning, nearly every morning, it was covered with fish. And when I got a salmon trout, it was like having orchids. My parents came down eventually to see me, and they came to the matinee, and we walked all the way home to the hotel, and they never said a word.
No reaction at all?
No, which was awful. If they'd have said it was lousy or awful, but they never said anything. That was dreadful. And then straight away after that, I got into The Girl in the Taxi, and it was a fit-up tour, which you carried your own proscenium, and we played in town halls and, anywhere. We did 112 towns in the year. 1 night and 2 nights and 3 nights, and that was marvellous.
You weren't called up, or you didn't have to do military service?
No, because I got this twitch business, which I never mentioned until Harry Kendall mentioned it in the book. I don't know, nobody ever much knew about it, really, because I managed to control it on the stage as I can now.
During the First World War, you did your first pantomime, didn't you?
Yes, Bournemouth and Southampton. I played Alfonso, friend of the Prince. I'd written a number in concert party called In Paris.
And this was the first number you'd ever written?
That was, yes.
Can you remember any of the lyrics of that?
Yes. In Paris, oh, it's just a place for you and me. Every night, all is bright, and there's always something new to see. Ladies fair will be there, oh, I tell you, they are très jolies. And the motto when they dance is on Histoire qui mène les penses in the merry little city of Paris. I used to do a can-can dance, you see, and they liked that.
And how many pantomimes have you played since then?
Oh, I think 26 altogether.
Autumn tints have left the hills and every leaf is gone. Chilly blast and blasted chills, old winter time draws on. Bulbous clouds now fill the heavens full of snow and sleet. Shoes by 6 must change for 7s, bunions on the feet. Granny's getting stiff to sitting in the draughty casement. Old Jack Frost attacks the maids and bites them in the basement. Get a set of flannelettes, for silk is not enough. Cast the mothballs from the fur, and shake Aunt Millie's muff. Oh, winter time, naughty, sporty winter time. Lots of holly and evergreen. Who trimmed the cake with a thermogene? Winter time, gay charades and naughty rhyme. Daddy's made up as a pantaloon. Little Jack's tracker's been pulled too soon. And Nora's got home with a burst balloon. It's jolly old winter time.
My greatest moment, you see, I mean, much more than being asked to lunch at Buckingham Palace, was when I found myself a member of the Gaiety Theatre Company. I had Gaiety Theatre, you didn't have to put London, Gaiety Theatre on my cards for years afterwards. Well, I was nowhere near the Gaiety. I got rather grand, and so I wasn't engaged in the next show. I told the manager off, and it was silly. I got back again as an understudy to Austin Mel in the musical called A Night Out, which was Hotel Paradiso. After that I was on tour of Crystals, and I played the sort of Jude part all through, because I thought there was no doing character stuff there. I'd better be the same thing all through. And we played 2 years and 6 weeks in the big music halls, packed twice nightly, and it was wonderful in a way, but it wasn't really me. I went to the New Oxford in Tottenham Court Road, which is gone, and that was my first day.
Your first day in pantomime?
The first day in pantomime. I bought wigs from Clark's, and I tried all sorts of black and blonde, and I found that the red was the most amusing.
Now of all the clans in Scottish land, there's none that can compare with the bonny old Clan MacDonald, and you'll find them everywhere. Pride of the pack was Flora Mac, the flower of the flock. Her heel and fling made everything turn purple with the shock. Flora MacDonald, heavy with haggis and dripping with dew. Many's the night she was out in the heather, bending the bracken with the uncharlie stew. Flora MacDonald, with she went your corner and bade her go forth. Clutchily skilton went over the border, oh, well over the border. Old Flo MacDonald, the hen on the nose.
You're quoted as being fairly snobbish about your dames.
Well, yes, I was snobbish. The fact that I played a different sort of dame, so if I had to play the cook in the first time, but when I found myself in Dick Whittington afterwards in Harrogate, I wouldn't play the cook, I'd made her the housekeeper. And if I was cast as the nurse in The Babes in the Wood, I said, oh no, I'm the governess.
So that you'd been on tour, very successfully on tour, you played pantomime successfully. What happened next?
I said, no, I must be with the top West End management.
This is for C.B. Cochrane?
This is the first Cochrane review of 1925, when I was with Cochrane for 6 shows, from 1925 until 1931. Shows with Noel Coward, Rodgers and Hart, Beverly Nichols, On with the Dance, and Zero Grace with Noel Coward, Rodgers and Hart, One Dumb Thing After Another, Cole Porter, Wake Up and Dream. Cocky always was very good. I never called him cocky, but a lot of people did. But he was very good. Whenever you asked for a rise, you always got it. And I was in 1926 when I started Cabaret with Lance Lister, who was also in the Cochrane reviews. He said that Cochrane's arrangement with his backers was 10% of the gross, which wasn't a bad idea.
You mentioned Lance Lister. It was at this period, while you were working for C.B. Cochrane, that we
did Cabaret in 1926. We opened at Uncle's. Lance was very naughty, very difficult, and he was always in trouble. And one night he didn't turn up. And so then I did my first number in Cabaret by myself.
And didn't you start recording at this time? Started making records?
It must have been about 1926 or 27 when we made the Cabaret Boys. That was the first one.
Yeah, the boys, the Cabaret Boys. We're the leading London nights that only joys. Although our songs are always on the bright side, on Saturday night we're always just a trifle on the tight side. We're fine at Christmas time, as the wicked robbers in the pantomime. We're dressed against the fairy queen of starry night, and though we're not supposed to sing and dance by rights, we should do a couple of high kicks if we nursed our tight. We're the nightclub joys, the Cabaret Boys.
You were working for Cochrane when you decided to start a club. Is
yes,
that right?
That's right. And with Mary Dangerton, who was very famous in musicals and as an imitator. It was Chippendale's old workshops in St. Martin's Lane. I made it into an old coaching inn. It lasted about 6 years. We never made any money. And it's extraordinary because Noel and Gertie and Gracie Fields and all sorts of well-known people, they all came and did things for nothing.
This, I believe, was the time that you started adding a wig.
Well, I was the first person, I think, to dress up in Cabaret. And that was only in bits and pieces, because in those days, you came down in your white tie and tails, you were a man. And you could put on a hat and a wig or a bit of nonsense, and they would accept it. But had I have come down the stairs dressed like Danny LaRue, I would have been hissed out of London. And I found also that I could be a bit more risque as a woman. And I don't know why you can, but it's because you're on the defensive, I suppose, more.
And what about C.B. Cochrane? Were you working for him at the same time?
Oh, yes, and Cocky wanted to get some percentage of on my cabaret work, and I stuck out, and I said no. You wanted to take 20%. The last review of Cotton, I think it was 32, I wrote some things for it, which got quite good notices. No one had gone to America and wanted me to do Mad Dogs and Englishmen and something else and something. I said, no, that's not me. I'm not going to come into the review.
You decided to go to America to do Cabaret in America. Were the audiences in America different? Oh, very different to the audiences.
You never knew where you were. It was prohibition. It was chaos. You didn't know what was happening. Sometimes you had to start your number 3 times. The noise and talking. They weren't used to not talking in Cabaret at that time. But I was out all night. I went mad on Harlem in those days. You could go up to Harlem and it was wonderful. They were marvellous, the coloured people.
My dears, I just adore your divine country. Oh, there goes that American accent again. I don't know what my husband will say. That's the worst of going to New York for a holiday. You see, I just come from USA, and a very pleasant stay, my dears. For 5 months, I just never went to bed. I arrived to spend a session in the midst of the Depression. If I hadn't, well, by now I should be dead. I met Al Smith and Mary Walker, and became a real New Yorker. I drank gin made out of little bits of wood. I'd a flask and could I fill it? And the slang, gee, could I spill it? Oh boy, you bet I could. Oh my dears, I had the most divine time.
After 6 months in America, you came back to this country. What happened then?
I did my cabaret act in Ivan Lavelle's party at the Arts Theatre and then at the Strand with Lillian Braithwaite, and that was quite successful. And then I think I went to Charlotte after that.
How many years were you with Charlotte?
Well, I was at about 4 or 5 shows. There was How Do You Do, Hi Diddle Diddle, Stop Go, Magnum of Charlotte, I went on tour with.
You also worked in Variety. When was your first job in Variety?
That was in 1934 at the Alhambra. I did 5 weeks, I think. And that's the first time I ever saw myself in lights. There was a great thing stuck up in the Charing Cross Road, because one entrance was in Charing Cross Road and the other was in Leicester Square. You see, all the ladies of the town went in the Leicester Square entrance. I did the thing that I wrote for Ivan Novello's birthday at his club, the 50-50, which everyone appeared. It was called a one-man pantomime.
And you did an entire pantomime yourself?
Well, I did.
Playing all the characters?
Yes, I did. I started with the Demon King, and then the Principal Girl, and then the Dame, and I think I put the Tree in as the Baron. Then I did I'm a Bird on a Wire, and I used to fly about, and then I did I'm Doris.
Goddess of the wine most rough and rude. They say I'm even more unkind than man's ingratitude. I'm really not an ill wind, though I don't get many thanks for being, well, a frolic wind, just one of nature's pranks. I put things in a whirl, I'm just a naughty little girl. I'm Doris, a goddess of wind. Thick, no pardon. My behaviour's quite undisciplined. I rush through the valleys and clear up the trees and brush up the hair on old Scott Gilly's knees. I'm Doris, a goddess of wind, and although you suppose you're thick-skinned, taking tea in the garden when skies are so blue, and you think there's no breeze to disturb your bon goût, but you eat a few crumpets and see what I'll do. It's the wind! It's the wind!
After Charlotte, you then, am I right in saying, went into Maritza?
Yes, 1938. Yes.
Which was a full-scale musical.
Oh, yes, and I wrote 2 numbers for that, and I wrote practically all my own part, too. It was a marvellous show. We had 40 in the orchestra and a Cigan band on the stage. I played Prince Supan. Now, I had to write myself an opening number, and I wrote I Must Have Everything Hungarian, which is rather the only time I seem to be singing rather well, if you want to put that on.
Oh, I must have everything Hungarian. It's a land where troubles disappear. Every learned latitudinarian knows the magic of the atmosphere. On the open plains, in the country lanes, even down the drains, it is there. You can live to be a centenarian in the hearty, healthy, hungry air.
We could have been running now. It was an enormous success.
And how long did it run for?
Oh, just a few months. It was 1938.
Right.
And that's when I was doing Meet Douglas Byng-Broadcast for Radio Olympia. That's when I did that extraordinary week. I used to play Prince Supan in the first act, and then at the matinee, and then Harry Hilliard came on as Prince Supan in the second act, and I was back to the third.
And you were rushed in a fast car to Olympia to do
and people were
radio
walking,
show?
Yes, we were in a sort of bear pit with people walked on a platform above and looked at us doing television, and it was just starting then in 38, I suppose, more or less.
How did you spend the war years?
Review days are they at the Prince of Wales, then Strike Up the Music, the London Coliseum, that was when it was bombed, 41. Humpty Dumpty at Streatham, 1942, Fine and Dandy, Review. Now, all that time I was doing soldiers' concerts. That was my war work.
Entertaining the troops.
I was very lucky because you were always very appreciated. I did India and Burma and Scapa Flow, and there weren't many people doing comedy, and I had the sort of stuff that the troops liked. Blackout Bella and those sort of numbers, or the pantomime thing. Wasn't it wonderful for me? I might have been stuck in a village making munitions or something. I mean, it was always a sort of party.
You were also, in the early years of the war, entertaining at the Café de Paris.
Oh, yes.
What were the audiences at the Café de Paris like, as opposed to playing to the troops?
They were amazing. Before the café was bombed, I had some of my songs recorded. It's a wonderful record of the spirit of the London Society audience during a war.
People think that's stupid things. They think that's silly things now in this very boring war, this Boer War #2. They really do. Yes, I was on the railway platform just now, watching the expectant mothers leave for the country. Yes, they were. Oh, there they were, all together, holding their lunch, their set of the half, yes. And I was looking at them all, and I was admiring them and thinking how very well they looked when an old lady, a dear old lady, came up to me, and she said, "Isn't it terrible to think that one man should be responsible for all this?"
What did you do immediately after the war?
I went on doing reviews with First Shepherd, and then I did one called Sauce Piquante and the Bells of St. Martin's, and The Bird Seller, yes, beautifully staged, beautifully put on Delft, thousands spent on it. Fabulous orchestra with Tauber. Conducting Richard Tauber. He was marvellous, really. Of course, he was rather worried about me because he only heard of me as a comic, and he didn't know whether I could sing. But I didn't do badly anyway, vocally. And at one rehearsal, I always remember, I said to him, Herr Tauber, could you possibly give me a little more pianissimo from the chorus, because I want to get this word bribe. I will never let you bribe me, never. I want to get the word bribe out because it's very important for the cue. And he always called me the bingy, so he said, I promise you the bingy. I will never let the orchestra drown you, only when you are singing.
In the early 50s, you returned to a play that you had understudied another character in many, many years before, which was Georges Feydeau's Hotel Paradiso with Alec Guinness.
And that was a wonderful success, but it all closed because I think Alec had a film to do. Well, then 2 years after that, it went to America. And I was the only person from the London production that opened in Washington on Broadway, with Angela Lansbury and Burt Lahr.
And then, of course, almost 10 years later came the film, which
yes, well, it was extraordinary how I got that. There is a lot of luck in the theatre as well as ability. I was standing outside the London Hippodrome, and I thought, now, shall I go down that little Irving Street, or shall I go down Charing Cross Road? Oh, I thought, no, I'll go down Irving Street. And there was a car outside with two people. One was Peter Glenville, said, we've just been to Paris, we were going to do a film of Hotel Libre Exchange. I said, oh, wonderful, yes. And when I'd gone, they suddenly thought, what about Dougie from Saint Martin? And I got it. But had I not gone down Irving Street, I would never have been in Hotel Paradiso.
You now live in Brighton. How long have you lived in Brighton?
About 15 years. And I'm very much of Brighton, actually. I find now that my grandfather, great-grandfather, was a Shelley. And his little house, Shelley's, opposite the church, and there are windows to him in the church, because apparently he was the Beadle. And I played in the Theatre Royal and the Hippodrome here so often.
And I gather you still do occasionally perform.
I only do charities. I've done things like the British Music Hall Society and the Eastbourne Music Hall Society, and I did the Jubilee for the Tower Theatre.
You've told me that for this programme you've actually written us a new number.
Oh yes, I thought I ought to.
It's called I Don't Want to Be Young Anymore. Is this your philosophy of life at the present time?
Well, in a way it is, yes. I've had a marvellous life, and I've had a marvellous time, because people have always been very nice, and really I've always had more praise than I deserve, in a way. And you know, it's been very pleasant. And now, funnily enough, in my retirement, I seem to be getting more reclam than ever. I go to do these things and they give me a standing ovation. I suppose that's Christian. I think, poor old thing, it's amazing he can stand up anyway. But here I am, on the air. How lovely residing by the sea, enjoying one's age so pleasantly. I don't want to be young anymore. And bathe with those bathers in the nude, displaying their shapes more strange and crude than any we've seen on the shore. With meditation and thoughts of moments sublime and constipation, the very worst thief of time when not in one's prime, but better than living on the dole, enough to send young men up the pole, with that old wolf so often at the door. Oh, I don't want to be young anymore. It's nice to be sitting in the sun and trying to live to 91. I don't want to be young anymore. With girlfriends today so unrefined, in trousers that show a large behind, and four-letter words by the score. Or join those joggers, forever jogging around. I've no desire to end up flat on the ground, not making a sound. And who wants to view punk rockers who have coloured their hair red, white and blue, their music louder than a cannon's roar? Oh, I don't want to be young anymore. The spirit of Brighton still remains, with Prince's delightful pink champagnes and those grand royal banquets galore. But many now face the passing years with only the taste of lager beers and hamburgers served with coleslaw. Our friendly ocean, with ever-freshening breeze, acts like a potion to ease those arthritic knees, but sometimes we freeze. And though modern buildings cause alarm, old Brighton will never lose its charm. So here I'll stay and shout Excelsior. Oh, I don't want to be young anymore.
Douglas Byng was talking to Glendearman. The pianist for I Don't Want to Be Young Anymore was Richard Holmes, and the programme, which was originally broadcast last March, was researched by Gordon Dickerson and produced by Glendearman.